Hello everyone, and welcome to what appears to be a wonderful morning on Djuma and Arathusa private game reserves. There's quite a lot of mist and it's quite chilly this morning. Sadly, no mist in this specific area that we're in, but hopefully as we drive along we will be able to show you some of the beautiful mist in the lower lying areas and valleys. It's slowly dissipating, but like I say, it makes for some moody weather and something a little bit different, something we haven't experienced for a while. I've headed out onto the northern boundary of Djuma in the hope that we could find some lion tracks. There was reports of the Nkuhuma pride crossing in from Sibambili, which is a property to the west of us, north of Arathusa, and what I must say is that there was some incredible interaction between the Nkuhuma pride, a clan of about 18 to 20, possibly a few more hyena, as well as the Shimungwe pride, and this all unfolded on Elephant Plains, which is to the west of Arathusa yesterday. So sadly we couldn't get in on this action, but basically what happened is the Nkuhuma pride, which is a pride of 7 lions, managed to take down a buffalo. They fed on it and they all left to go and feed, to go and have a drink, all except Junior, who stayed at the kill to try and protect it. Now there were so many hyena that they overwhelmed Junior and chased him off. He ran away, and the hyena started to feed on this buffalo. At this stage, I guess from all the commotion, the Shimungwe 3 lion, 2 lioness and 1 young male, heard the noise and came in to find just the hyena feeding on this buffalo, and they walked straight in completely casually and started to feed on this buffalo. They shortly then got turned around by the hyena, and the young male from the Shimungwe pride got a serious attack. He apparently is still in good condition, surprisingly, but he got really quite severely mauled, or at least it looked like it, but thankfully no damage was done to him. The Nkuhuma pride then heard this commotion of the hyena chasing off the 3 Shimungwes, and they returned only to also be chased by these hyena up into marula trees. Apparently at one stage there was 4 different lion up 4 different trees. So interesting, because the hyena in this area usually don't chase lion, whereas in other areas of Africa it happens quite commonly. Although I'm told that this clan of hyena that occurs to the west of us is very large and has the ability to overthrow lions. So hopefully we will be sharing some video footage that was captured yesterday. It's really interesting stuff, and hopefully we'll get our turn to see that stuff and share it with you live. Anyway, let's carry on, and as I said earlier, it is a crisp... Oh no, we don't have to go anywhere. Let's just take a look to our left rather. Look at this pleasant surprise. And what is that wildebeest snorting at? Awesome. Now that didn't sound like an alarm call to me. It's more of a contact call. And judging by the body language of all the other animals and the wildebeest, there's nothing to get too excited about, but when he first started calling, I thought there may be something. So as I was saying before the wildebeest started snorting, it's about 13 degrees Celsius, 54 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm teamed up today with VM on camera. Brent is going to be heading out on the other vehicle, so you'll get to meet him shortly. I'm not too sure exactly what his plans are, but James is also out on tracking team, so there's a few of us searching for animals, but at this stage, no tracks of any predators. And Tara is directing the show with Nikki lending her a hand. I'm wondering if we shouldn't just reposition and get a few more views of the zebra as they walk towards us.
This lens is fogged up.
It doesn't seem too fogged up. No. Because of the mist this morning, VM may have encountered some trouble with the lens, and what we're going to do is just give it one quick wipe while we're reversing. You're not going to miss anything. There we go. what I'm hoping to do here is get the sun directly behind the zebra and allow VM to play around with all the different buttons and functions and settings on this camera to give you some unique views of the zebra. I certainly haven't been able to enjoy a zebra sighting with all of you for quite some time. Let's see how this works out. There's quite a few fork-tailed drongos calling. It's an almost robotic sound. And that little zebra foal on the left, it's not that small. Probably 7 or 8 months old, maybe born last December or November, but it was rubbing its chin there on a little branch. And they're all sniffing some of the other zebras' dung as they walk past, and it's incredible how much both urine and dung provide vital information for the animals out here, a concept that I guess is quite difficult for us as humans to understand. You may have faintly also been able to hear the deep grunting of a hippopotamus. And there's a large water hole behind us called Sydney's Dam, and that's where quite a few of the hippo that usually stay on Djuma during the summer months when we've got deeper water holes have all moved to. Great, well, always good to start off with a sighting, and like I said, haven't seen zebra for quite some time actually. That and giraffe, so if there are any reports of giraffe, we'll be sure to race over there and share their brilliance with you. The zebra have all moved off into some quite thick vegetation, so we will now continue in the hope of finding you some more action on this live safari. And that's something that I haven't mentioned just yet, and if there are any new viewers, a very, very warm welcome, and it's good to have you with us. What we would really like is if you could send through some questions or comments if it is your first time, and if it's not your first time, of course, you also can send through questions and comments. And to do so, you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Now, I told you a little story about what happened with the Nkuhuma Pride and the Shimungwe Pride yesterday, but we also got some very interesting updates on leopard. Now, I said yesterday there was speculation that Shadow had been seen mating with Tingana, and it is in fact true. It was the day before yesterday that they were found in the morning, and almost certainly they only joined up 2 mornings ago. The Anderson male and Shadow tracks were not in the same place, and one person was following Shadow's tracks and another following Anderson's, and they met up that morning 2 days ago and mated for about 12 hours to 24 hours. And then yesterday afternoon we found her on her own, and she was calling quite intently, and we're wondering what she could have been calling for. Now, speculation yesterday and theories that I said was that she was looking for the Anderson male, or possibly communicating with other female leopard, indicating to them that she is around and this is her territory. And what's interesting is that further reports from the sighting of Shadow and the Anderson male was that they weren't the only 2 leopards there. Now, this is really interesting. A female leopard who we've yet to see yet, called Salayeshwe, who I actually don't know too much about, other than that she lives on Sibambili to the north of Arathusa and to the west of Djuma. She's got a little cub, probably 3 months old now, and her cub excuse me, were in that sighting. And Shadow was chasing Salayeshwe, and Salayeshwe was chasing Shadow. I did ask which one of the leopards appeared to be dominant, and they said it was a very evenly balanced contest between these two female leopards. But isn't that interesting stuff that happened? Also, what's interesting is that Shadow was found about 2 to 3 kilometers further west of where I saw her yesterday. So she is moving massive, massive distances. And it's so wonderful that by communicating with the other guides, we can get a better understanding of what these animals do, even if we're not there. Sadly, at the moment, we're not in the right area to in all likelihood bump into Shadow or her cub Sandile. We're on the opposite end of Juma to where he was, but it's still early on in the drive, and we could very well end up heading into that area to see if in fact Shadow has finally headed back to her cub. Lindsay, I hope you are happy with the updates I've just given you about the leopards, because that was one of your requests. Other than the updates on Shadow and the Anderson male, I don't have any other interesting updates on the other leopard in the area just yet, but that could very well change. And another person interested in some updates is Derek. Morning and welcome. Derek would like to know if there's any updates on the Birmingham Coalition. And sadly, Derek, at this stage, no updates. Last I heard, they were still south and east of our property, but with a little bit of luck, they'll come back on at some stage soon. I haven't seen them since probably February or March last year, and each time they come back onto Juma, I'm away at weddings or on leave, so I would really love to see them again, and we'll certainly be well, you can all now see the mist I was speaking of earlier in that low-lying valley, and what a beautiful scene this is. You can hear a brown-headed parrot screeching as it flies past. Wow! That was an African fish eagle. And I've actually just seen it. Vim at about 10 or 11 o'clock in those dead trees. It's quite far, but you can vaguely make it out. I'm guessing it's hunting at a small waterhole nearby, and it really is easy hunting for the African fish eagles and a lot of the other fish-eating birds at the moment, because a lot of their quarries are confined to very, very small and continually reducing water levels. And it's going to continue to get easier for these birds for probably the next 2 months. There it goes. Well done, Vim. It's so useful to stop every now and then, not only to enjoy the scenery, but also to allow your ears to help try and find you useful information. It is something that I mention quite often, but you must understand there's a lot of new viewers joining every day. So it's important for us to share the secrets and methods and different techniques you can use when guiding and looking for animals. And to elaborate a little bit more about why listening can be so important in this area where it's quite thick, you can often see considerably, so you can often hear considerably further than you can see. And that's why driving around frantically, hoping to actually see something, may not be your best option, and to drive slowly and stop and listen, where so many animals could potentially provide us with clues, is often the number one move we should go for, especially if you're not sure of any specific tracks or action in the area you're in, which is a scenario for us now. You'll be glad to know that you're all going to head across to Brent's vehicle soon. So Brent is ready to receive you, but before that I can answer a question about an animal that we saw a little bit earlier on, and that was the blue wildebeest. And Marilyn has asked, is there any difference between a wildebeest and a gnu? And no, there certainly isn't. They are two names that can be used for the same species, and it's mainly up in East Africa where they are called gnus. And South Africa, we tend to call them wildebeest. We get the black and the blue wildebeest here in South Africa. And oh, I have got some, let me just double check that I'm not making a mistake here. No, there's a very, very interesting sequence of tracks that I'd like to show you, and they come from an animal that we seldom see, but this is evidence that they do occur here. Just going to take a moment or two to get the vehicle positioned correctly. Okay, so look at these tracks over here. Now, this is a very interesting animal, like I say, and it's called an aardvark, which is a nocturnal animal. They've got very long claws, so those are long claws that we can see. And as VM pans up, you'll see some of the other tracks left by this animal. And I don't know if I've ever actually been able to show you aardvark tracks. And I must apologize, I would love to show you a picture of this bizarre nocturnal, or mainly nocturnal animal, but I forgot my mammals book behind, so slap on the wrists for me. But maybe Brent can show you in his book exactly what an aardvark looks like. But basically, I can describe it to you. It's pig-like, big ears, a long tubular snout with a very long tongue, and it'll use the long claws, which are evidence in the tracks here, to dig into termite mounds, and then it uses a very long tongue to lick up all the termites. So they feed strictly on termites, and we've never been able to show you one since I've been here in November. I have seen one on our way back to Manyeleti, so one in the close to a year of being here. And isn't it wonderful that there are still animals out here that we still have to show you? So there's still some stuff that is going to be really exciting to see. Another animal that I haven't seen or be able to show you yet, all the other presenters have, is the honey badger. So that's another one that I would love to share with you. A strange animal that is certainly worth taking a look at if we get to find them again. Some of you may have seen a few glimpses of aardvark. Tingana, a male leopard, who has been mating with Shadow. The female we saw yesterday has made about 4 or 5 aardvark kills. the sun's getting a little bit higher up. It's warming us up a little bit. Before I even knew she had asked it, but she sent through some more now, and she would like to know if I know how old Salayeshwe's cub is. And I think it's about 2 or 3 months old. It's still very small and very, very cute. The guys across there have been enjoying some wonderful, wonderful sightings with this little cub. I think it is a female, but not too much other info on that for you, Lisa. And another thing that Lisa's interested to know is whether or not we're still collecting dung samples for Panthera, which is a big cat research project. And we certainly are. I haven't submitted any dung samples yet though, because it's important for us to know with almost certainty which leopard the dung has come from. And I haven't been in I've seen a leopard defecate and be able to and I'm not sure how long it will take.
Good morning and welcome on the Sunrise Safari. My name is Brent Smith and I'm going to be your guide. And I have Brian on camera, and sometimes together we are known as the Killer Bees. So hopefully we're going to live up to that nickname and hopefully find some animals for you today. I heard you've just been seeing some really interesting tracks with Scott. Unfortunately, I didn't have a picture of an aardvark, but I do. There we go. That is an aardvark with his tongue in and in a termite mound. A very strange looking beastie, and the only member of its family and order. And there are only 4 other known aardvark species that are all extinct, and the earliest one of those comes from East Africa. There we go. They've got incredibly interesting dentition. They lack any form of canine or incisor. So even in a lot of your herbivores, they'll have sort of canine or incisor-like teeth. It has only premolars and made for crushing those termites, and that incredibly long tongue that is able to fiddle around and lick up termites. So a really, really interesting animal. Not one that I think has been seen on the live safaris. If they have, I would love to know about it, and you can send those answers through to questions at WildEarth.tv via email, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Has an aardvark ever been seen on the live safaris? I've been quite fortunate in my time in the bush. I've seen quite a few, and actually on the reserve where my parents live, I saw 3 in one night, and my dad even saw one being chased by a leopard recently. And as we know, the Tingana, the dominant male leopard of this area and a little bit to the west of us, is a great fan of aardvark meat, and quite unusual, and he's been found with quite a few aardvark carcasses over the last couple of months. It seems like he's specialized. And they are quite big animals for that size, and in English they're quite often referred to as an ant bear, which is probably not the best of names, as they've literally got nothing to do with the bear. Aardvark is actually the Afrikaans name for them, and it means earth pig, which is probably a little bit better. They are sort of pig-like, and they do dig around in the earth. Quite an important species for a lot of other species out here. The fact that the aardvarks excavate burrows and termite mounds, and hyenas and wild dog and warthog, will all take over the usage of those burrows and make their homes in them after the aardvark have moved on, as well as porcupines and mongoose to a certain degree. But so, very interesting animal, and one hopefully we'll be able to show you on a live safari if the opportunity does arise. So I know Scott's way up on the northern boundary. I'm heading down towards the southwestern corner, and that's where young Sindile was last seen, and I want to see if we can find him. If not, we might go looking for his mom, or trying to follow up on what happened to the Nkuhuma pride. So from what I heard from the other guides, absolutely fascinating behavior happened just out of our traverse zone.
Yeah, it's very misty.
And sorry guys, there's quite a lot of mist and moisture in the air this morning, so you're going to see a white sweep in front, and that's Brian just trying to get some of the dew off the lens in this cool, misty early morning. And I'm very happy. It's a cool, sunny morning, so no clouds in the sky, just this low-lying mist. So apparently the Nkuhumas had caught buffalo. Then another pride of lions arrived, the Shumungwe pride, who we've seen 3 of the individuals with me at the gate a while ago. They were all chased by a large group of hyenas. Some people say 18, some people say 30. So I'm not 100% sure how many hyenas, but they were scattered by hyenas. It seems like the poor Nkuhuma is being chased on all fronts at the moment by Birmingham's in the north and by hyenas in the west. So let's go see what's been happening around that area. We'll try and get an update over the radio as we cross through to Arathusa, but I think first let's have a look for young Sindile. Just listening to the radio this morning, it sounds like the Birminghams did a flash visit through Djuma. They walked down our eastern boundary and out into Buffelshoek, and I know Scott was hoping to possibly find them down there. I heard them calling from about, I'd say probably about 4 o'clock this morning. I could hear them calling, and they were moving towards us, but I was a little bit worried. They were very close to our eastern and northern boundary, and unfortunately they have crossed out. We're going to start keeping our eyes peeled here. This is the area where young Sindile was last seen on Sunset Safari last night. I'm just going to get hold of James. He was the last person with that young boy, and see if he has an update for me on the exact last position. Always helps to start looking in the right place. James. Not to worry, it looks like one of the vehicles from the south has located Sindile on Djuma, just off the Bulgari Main, slightly to the east of junction with standby. Cancel that. I'll keep back doing this. Oh, rickety.
Madiba is just behind the Shidulu there.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Thanks, Ed. So, guys, it seems like young Sindile, or as he's been called now by the Arathusa guides, Madiba, is just behind the termite mound here. We're going to try get in now. We'll just see what's happening. find him. I'm just looking very carefully. I think he might be down to the left here, so yeah, Brian, look for any movements and whatnot. Looking to the left. So we're just looking, you can see him, yeah. Brian spotted him, we're just going to try and get him. Oh, there he is. Just on this little termite mound. Let's see if we can have a look at him now. He's just moving into some bush there. So it doesn't look like he's moved far at all from last night. There he is, in the early morning light.
Welcome back. I'm sure it won't be long until Brent's signal recovers. And isn't it great news that he's got you into the right place to enjoy yet another sighting with Sindile. It'll be interesting to know how many hours we have spent with him over the last few months. But he really is providing us with a lot of time spent together, and I'm guessing we'll probably be seeing that leopard for about at least another year, I'm hoping, if all things go well. And even though his mother has been seen mating with not one but two different male leopards over the last few days, therefore will probably give birth in about 3 months' time. If the mating was successful, he will still lurk around in her territory for quite some time, and we're going to be able to enjoy watching him grow and develop and start catching some bigger prey. All we've seen him not catch, but seen him with kills that he's made as a dwarf mongoose and a francolin at this stage. But over the coming months, especially when his mother does give birth, he is going to be required to up his game and start fending for himself. VM and myself have stopped by Buffalo's Hook Dam. He just needs to wipe the lens quickly. It's fogging up due to the misty weather. There we go. Thanks, VM. And there was not much action at the Buffalo's Hook waterhole. And I know Derek was asking a little bit earlier about any updates on the Birmingham Pride, and I've just heard some of the guides up in Buffalo's Hook to the north of us say that they have been found, but interestingly it's just 4 of them together, and yesterday the guys in Buffalo's Hook only found 1 of them. So interesting that 1 of them is leaving the rest of the coalition. Not sure what it's going off to do, but there are 4 members of the Birmingham Pride quite far north into Buffalo's Hook, almost at the boundary with the next reserve called the Manyaleti Reserve. Other than that, no other lion updates for the time being, but hopefully it won't be long before we do get an update on their whereabouts. Even if it's in an area where we can't necessarily view them, it's just great to understand and know the distances they're traveling and where they're moving, because at the moment there is going to be a lot of change and shifts between what happens with the lions in this area, mainly between the Birmingham Coalition, which I've just mentioned are up in the north, to the north of us, them and the two Matimba males, who are currently dominant but in all likelihood going to be overthrown by the Birmingham Coalition. But already, as we've seen, the Birmingham Coalition, even though they'll be competing directly for the Matimba's territory, quite often when young coalitions come through in a rampage trying to acquire new territory, other lions get caught in the crossfire. And that has already happened with the Nkahuma Pride, who have sadly lost a lioness a few weeks ago to the Birmingham males. I was chatting with some of the Arathusa and Sibambili guides who we had a gathering with last night, and we were all saying how lucky we are to be at this time where there is going to be a coalition takeover, and probably between 4 to 6 or 7 years that it takes for you, or the time you need to wait for one coalition to lose its dominance before the next one comes in. And so far in my guiding career, I've never been in the right place at the right time to enjoy watching a pride takeover. When I left the Sabi Sands in 2011, it was coming to the end of the Mapocho Coalition's reign, and the Majingi lions, who are still currently dominant for the majority of the southern part of the Sabi Sands, came in and took over. There's a chance that we may even see that Majingi lion coalition. They are still very dominant, and there are 4 of them remaining. I think there could have been 5 initially, and I'm told that they're still band together when there is the necessity to use their strength as a combined coalition to get rid of other lions. Brent's just having a tough time getting a good view of Sindile. He's temporarily moved off into some thick bush, so we're not going to rush you back to that sighting yet, but don't worry, Brent is still there and he'll be sure to let us know when it'll be a good time for you to rejoin him. Just about to hop onto the eastern boundary of Djuma, onto a road called Cheetah Cut Line. Now that's an animal we haven't seen for a while, and for those of you who are new to the Safari Live experience, they do occur here, but because of the high lion and leopard densities, they are not very prominent, so sightings of them are rare and special. It's a combination of not only the lion and leopard densities in this area, but also the thick vegetation that occurs here that is not really suited to cheetah, who like to be able to use their incredible speed in large open areas. Now, I've just turned around here in the hope that I can show you some tracks. It looks like they are of the Birmingham Pride, and this was obviously the route they used to get into Buffelshoek last night. And if I just stop here, then we'll be able to point out that just along this left-hand track here, there are some very large lion paw prints. You can see one over there. There's others that were also to that side of the screen, but these are going to be the clearest ones for you to view. What I'm going to do quickly is jump out and give you an idea of how big that track is by using my hand and putting it next to it. So, which one are we on here, Vim?
Next one?
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
So, a very, very large paw prints. This is the right foot of one of the Birmingham coalitions, and the reason why I can tell that is that if I put my right hand into those toe depressions, it fits very comfortably. Whereas if I use my left hand, the toe, my fingers and his toes don't kind of add up. So you can quite easily differentiate between the left side and the right side of lion and leopards. And not only that, you can tell the difference between a front paw and a back paw, because the front paw is the biggest paw. It carries the weight of the head and the shoulders, the biggest part of the animal, whereas the back pads are often smaller. It's going to be difficult for me to point one out here because the vehicle has already driven over this road. So sadly, not a good opportunity for me to show you that difference. But at least you got to see the tracks of the Birmingham boys. I wish it was the animals themselves, but at least we know they did pass along our eastern boundary, and hopefully it won't be long until they come back again. Timing is everything out here, but what I love about the road networks and about tracks and tracking is that it's sometimes almost as good just to know what's happened by the tracks, and you can use your imagination in between to fill in the gaps. I guess even though we didn't see the lion when they did move along this pathway, like I said, it's still great that we know this is one of the pathways that they use, and it's somewhere we can keep checking in the future. Lions and leopards will very often have habits, not that they stick to them daily, but the longer we spend out here and the more we get to know about particular paths that the lions and leopards may like to use, the easier it becomes for us to find them. Here's an animal that we often see but don't very often spend a long time with. The impala. It's the most numerous mammal in this area, and they are highly successful. This is quite a large male impala. And he is not alone. There are a few others. They're quite far from him, so not easy for VM to get in the same frame. But there are also two younger males with him, one of which looks like it was born in November or December last year. And as VM repositions, you'll be able to notice the two up to the right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly creep forward so we can show you a bit better these differences between a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, what it looks like. Or am I dreaming? No, I think I could be dreaming. I think they're both last year's baby Impala boom. And you can see the horns aren't nearly as big as the others. Anyway, I've just got some good news from Brent. Sindile is on the move and out of that tricky area that he was in earlier. So head over and enjoy. I wish I was coming along to join you.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about that. He just disappeared into some really thick bush and we had a gremlin or two invade, but we stuck with him and he's popped out onto this fallen down Combritum, and he just seems to be keeping himself very entertained at the moment, licking dew, chewing on sticks, testing out his agility, trying to find a comfortable spot at the moment, but he doesn't seem to be winning there. There we go. You can see looks like he's actually biting a spider web there for a second. So quite often, as we did this morning, we find young Sindile or on top of termite mounds, and Penny Pine is wondering, does he sleep on top of the termite mounds for the warmth? Most of the termite mounds we see him on are dormant, so it's not for warmth. It's for a little bit of a raised view, so he can possibly see if there's any prey or potential predators that come towards him. So it's more for a safety thing. I'm sure all the squirrels and francolin and cisticulars in this area must be quite tired of being chased by young Sindile. He's been in this area for almost 5-6 days now, waiting for mother to return. But as James has noted, if you look at his belly, he's by no means hungry at the moment. So obviously he is catching stuff by himself as well. Might not be the biggest stuff, but oh, and speaking about catching stuff, I think he might have just been playing. I thought he might have seen something like a little rodent, but I think he's just playing. Just 1 second, guys. I just need to call someone in. Morning, Abo, you can make your way. Just me here. Copy, best access is if you come off Gari Main, probably 200 meters from the signboards and Triple M to the east. Oh, look, he's just having the best time this morning. Full of the joy of life. He's trying to catch his own tail by the looks of things there. No mom's tail to play with, so he'll make do with his own. Oh, isn't he a cutie pie? Oh, he's got to apologize to his tail. I think he might have bit it a little bit harder than he thought there. Well, it's not often I mean, we see leopards play quite a lot, but not often you see them chasing their own tail. And even this little bit of playing, even though he's playing by himself, it is really good practice. Did you see how he's not falling off that branch? He's managed to spin around on a relatively difficult area. So obviously that's going to help with his dexterity as he gets older. So all these little games do help prepare these animals for when they are independent. We have some oxpeckers flying over. Oh, what's he spotted there? Looks like he might have spotted something in the distance. No, maybe not. Maybe just checking the horizons. Does seem to be loving this little fallen down combretum. And from a particularly cold start, the morning is definitely warming up quickly. Just going to lose a layer. And what a fantastic way to start the day. With the young male leopard, full of playfulness. To be interesting to see how long he stays in this area and whether Shadow actually does return to him. From what I hear, after mating with Tingana, she went off and mated with the Anderson male. And has she abandoned him, or will she come back? That is obviously one of the big poses that all of us are discussing at the moment. And if she has decided that he should become independent very early, will he be able to survive? Will he be able to catch enough stuff? Is his hunting skills developed enough? I would like to think so. I mean, we look at him, even though his mom has left him for quite a while now, he's got a very full belly. And a full belly doesn't need to come from big prey like impala and whatnot. It can come from rodents and insects and birds and whatever else he might be able to find. But the biggest threat for him is the fact that being left at this age is other male leopards, young male leopards like Quarantine and Kunuma, who are dependent now and semi-nomadic before they establish territories. They would see a young animal like this as a threat to their territories possibly going forward, so they would definitely remove that threat. And the Anderson male, if he continues to extend further to the east, would he bump into where Sandile is at the moment? So it would be very, very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to watch. So I just mentioned that Quarantine and Kunuma pose a threat to a young male like Sandile, and Dory from Milwaukee was wondering, well, if they met up with Shadow and Sandile, would they recognize that they're related? I don't think so, to be honest. Those are independent male leopards now, and they are searching for territory, and Sindile, even if he was related, even there's going to come a stage, even when they come together, that they're going to fight each other at some point. I don't think that brotherly bond will last forever, and I definitely don't think they would recognize this young male as a relative. Now, if they came across Shadow, it's a slightly different story, with her being a female, and they're probably not ready to mate yet. Even though they probably physically could, they wouldn't be beat out by the competition by the dominant males, on the females seeking dominant males as opposed to young males. I'm just going to reposition a little bit. So obviously, there's quite a lot of speculation about where Shadow currently is. I'm not 100% sure. I know Scott had her yesterday on the Sunset Safari at some point in Arathusa. I'm not sure where she's moved to. I haven't heard any updates yet over the radio where she might be. And that's from Rumay. And Jennifer said she knows in humans, in rare circumstances, women can give birth to twins from two different fathers from two different eggs, and she wants to know, is this possible in leopards, specifically because Shadow's been mating with Tingana and Anderson. That would mean that there could possibly be an offspring from each of those males if she were to be impregnated. So we have had this question before, and James and I actually did quite a bit of research, and we got hold of Panthera, who are the sort of experts on leopards, and asked them about this, and they say not to their knowledge, and that's quite an interesting thing. So as far as they know, it doesn't happen in leopards. Not to say that it is impossible, but we are at the moment, by collecting all those dung samples, that will be able to tell quite a lot about who the paternal line of leopards, which we do know very little about in comparison to the maternal line. If you're hearing those clicks, that's just me taking a few pictures of young Sindile, and I encourage you guys to take screenshots as well and share them on Twitter with the hashtag #SafariLive. So I know Scotty started a question a little bit earlier this morning, but unfortunately the gremlins crept in. And the question is from Lisa, is that are we still collecting fecal samples for the Panthera project, and when possibly is this information going to be available? And Lisa, we are still. Obviously we've collected Shadow and we've collected Sindile. They would prefer it if we know exactly who the individual leopards are, that when we pick up the fecal sample, it's not just picking up any leopard poo you see. And obviously that makes it a lot easier for them to deal with information. And we have, in terms of when that information is going to be out, probably in a couple of years. It does take a long time to collaborate because they're not only doing it in this part of the Sabi Sands, but throughout the whole Sabi Sands. So it is going to take quite a while. So I think it's going to be a year or two before that information is readily available. One must remember with scientific papers and stuff, once the initial work is done, it needs to be go through multiple reviews by outside professors and scientists to make sure that the data has not been affected or biased in any way, and it is true data that belongs to that group and that science. So to make sure that it's genuine information, there's quite a long process to go to get that information out there. But still fascinating. So while young Sindile keeps snoozing on this log, we're going to cross back to Scotty, who's following up on Sindile's, how would you describe him? Well, relative, without having to go into too much of the genealogy, but we'll be back with Sindile a little later.
Welcome back, and from leopard in the tree, which sounds like a wonderful sighting, we've got a vulture sitting in a big old dead leadwood tree, and we are in the area where the quarantine male leopard had a kill. It was a kudu kill, and he was having a hard time from these vultures who were trying to steal little bits of it from him. But last night he encountered bigger problems, the quarantine male, and that is that the Birmingham coalition clearly came through and obviously chased him off that kill. It could have been that hyena got to the kill first and chased quarantine off, but there were tracks of the Birmingham males in that very area. And when James did come into this area this morning to have a quick look at what had happened last night, he actually did get a glimpse of the quarantine male. So despite the fact that both hyena and 4 large male lion were in the area, he still backed himself and knew that he can just move off a short distance to get out of harm's way, and that way he can return once the chaos is finished with the lion and the hyena and see if there's any tiny little scraps left over. Sadly though, when we got here now, a little bit after James, there was no further sign of quarantine, and James did say that it looked like he was heading further south into a property where we cannot go. Anyway, just some interesting updates on what had happened last night in the quarantine male leopard's life, but we're going to send you back now to Sindile and continue on towards Arathusa. I'm interested to get onto that property to find out what's going on there. Hopefully some lion are about. Who knows, the Nkuhuma pride could be there. We'll see you later.
Welcome back, guys. I'll be with you in a second. I'm just trying to direct Abel into the sighting. Abel, come in. Abel, head east on Gowrie Main towards Twin Dams, and probably not even 100 meters from that junction, you should see me to the north of the road. Sorry about that, guys. You can see young Sindile has not moved an inch. He looks like he's having a nap. I can't imagine how comfortable that is, but he seems to be enjoying it. So even though he's napping, watch his ears. They're constantly moving and scanning for different sounds around the bush, just in case there's a potential threat around. So I'm just going to be on the game drive again for a second. Best place to be is just in front of my vehicle. See how he's moved his ears and he's listening towards where Abel is coming from. So obviously we spend a lot of time with leopards and we're very privileged to be able to do so. Janet from Baltimore was wondering a little bit more about their territories and home ranges and size, male versus female, and do they have different scent marking or calling techniques to defend their territories, as well as when young Sindile will head off to find his own territory. So, Janet, well, males generally have quite a lot larger territories than females. A male territory can encompass 3 to 4 different females depending on the area. In this area, male territories encompass 2 or 3 female territories generally. But if you go further to the south from here, along the Sand River or the Sabi River, the female territories there are much smaller, and obviously that's because it's very prime territory along the rivers. So an average female leopard territory in the northern Sabi Sands is about 2,000 hectares, which is probably just over 4,000 acres, and a male territory, depending, can vary up to about 5,000 or 6,000 hectares. Now if we move down onto the sort of prime leopard territories on the major rivers like the Sand and the Sabi, or even the Manyeleti, those female leopard territories decrease by a considerable amount. On the Sand River here, most female leopard territories are only around 600 hectares, so much smaller than, for example, say Karula or Shadows territories. And the reason for this is they have high density of food close to the river, as well as a lot of good sort of leopard territory, that leopard cover along the rivers and drainage lines. So male territories still, even then on the Sand River in prime territory, are smaller because it can encompass more females in a smaller area. So the competition for those sites along the river is far greater than, say, for some of these mixed broadleaf woodland, Combreton woodlands that we are in now. Hello. And in terms of their territorial marking and whatnot, male and female leopards will generally have the same sort of structure. They will walk and patrol the edges and scent mark, as well as giving that wonderful rasping roar that they do, because those of you who've been on safari with us a while will know that's due to the hyoid apparatus or hyoid bone. And in the Panthera cats, the hyoid bone is elastic, and so it's an elastic cartilage that enables them to cause it to vibrate and roar. And we'll continue discussing So we're going to finish off with that discussion about when Sindile will become independent, and it's very unusual, as we said, for a female leopard to abandon a male leopard cub at this age. With female leopards, they do become independent at around a year to a year and a half, but with male leopards, the females will generally keep looking after them till sometimes over 2 years old, well over 2 years old in some cases. But it seems that Shadow has already started mating with multiple males now. So whether she's going to abandon this young guy, or once she's finished mating, will she come back and continue to look after him? That we cannot be certain of yet, and only time will tell. But normally, young male leopards become independent at around 18 months to 2 years old. They will still stay around their natal home range for a little bit, but will start drifting further afield out of their mother's home range, and they'll only really start challenging for territory at about 4 to 5 years old, and even then closer to 6 sometimes. So the new male in the area, the Anderson male, he's about 6 or 7, and he started challenging the other males in the area for territory. So very interesting. But they're generally from that age of about 2 years to about 5 years old. Young male leopards are semi-nomadic, and there's a very interesting case because a lot of studies have done on female and territorial males. So they've collared these animals, and generally those are quite sedimentary at that stage, so they've already hold territories, and very little research up until recently had been done on dispersal males, so young males that leave their mother's home range. And there was a Panthera project that happened in northern Zululand on Phinda Private Game Reserve, where they collared 2 dispersal males, and the one dispersal male they were both collared on Phinda, and the one actually moved about 350 kilometers and ended up inside the Southern Kruger National Park, and the other moved even further and moved down the south coast through very heavy populated areas of South Africa before settling born in the south of the Sabi Sands at a place called Lion Sands, and probably as the crow flies, has only moved about 20 kilometers from where he was born. But as saying that, they can move excessively large distances after they've been born. It all depends on the pressure and the leopard densities of those certain areas.
Wants to give Brian some airtime, but then immediately zoom up when he got to us to that wide.
And he still looks like he's trying to find the comfortable spot. And I think that's the best leopard branch I've ever seen in my time in the bush. And there we see Scott and Wim behind. Or Scott and Wim looking at us. Young Sindile. You might be looking through Scott's camera, but you're still listening to me. And it looks like young Sindile is about to have a very good nap. I don't think he's going to stay sleeping on this little branch for the rest of the day. I'm quite sure he's going to head off towards one of these termite mounds he's so fond of in this area and keep resting. I'm quite sure he probably will, if anything happens upon him, try attack it, as we've seen him chase squirrels, francolins, testiculars, and pretty much anything that moves. He was even, from what I heard from James, quite adventurous, and he tried to actually stalk an adult kudu the other day, which is a little bit too big for him. Gonna have to wait till he gets to sort of quarantine and consumer size. So Scott and Wim are heading off to see if they can find something else. There they go. So obviously there's quite a lot of discussion on the internet going on about whether Shadow will come back to this young male. And Trista from Idaho, who is possibly a new viewer, if not new to asking questions, so welcome Trista, is wondering how long Sindile would stay in this area before deciding to move off and realizing that he had been abandoned. Well, that is a very interesting question. I mean, he's been here for 5 days without moving more than about 500-600 meters now. And until we get an update on what his mother is doing, the last we heard she was running about with the Anderson male to the south and west of us. I think as long as he can keep catching little things like he has, he's caught some franklin and some squirrels and other things, and you can see he is quite full even though he's been on his own for this long. But I think probably not much longer than 10 to 14 days before he would just decide to move off. And so a very typical leopard pose. Generally we're used to seeing it in much higher trees though. Maybe he hasn't quite, well, he can climb very well. We have seen him go up some incredibly tall and thin trees. We have a look at those big feet of young Sindiles. Anna Marie and Ginny have noticed how big his paws are in comparison to the rest of him, and are wondering, will he ever grow into those paws, and the size of his paws mean he's going to be a particularly big leopard? Well, not necessarily. He's definitely going to grow into his paws, but whether he's going to be a monster leopard or not, I'm afraid we can't say. It all depends on who Daddy Dearest is. And more than likely Tingana, but it could also be Mvula. I think Shadow was seen mating with both. And there is possibly other males she could have mated with that could be the sire to young Sindile. You might have heard something. I'm just trying to have a look beyond him, see if there's possibly an impala or steenbokkie or something that he might be looking for. If we pop into his face there, we'll see some very long, sort of, not so much whiskers, but long hairs coming out of my eyebrows is possibly a better description. And Abby on email is wondering what possibly could those be used for. And they're very, very sensitive, so if a leopard's stalking, those will touch little branches and stuff and enable them to move a little bit more carefully through the bush. So that's what those are there for. And speaking of whiskers, I've got a question for you guys out there. What is the correct name for a leopard's whiskers? Because what is the correct name for a leopard's whiskers? and you can send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv on email, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So as we see young Sindile reclining so comfortably in this little combretum, Pat from Ontario is wondering, why is he sleeping up off the ground? Is it to avoid fleas? She said she's noticed that her domestic house cats prefer to recline on garden furniture than lie on the ground to avoid fleas. Well, Pat, I'm pretty certain he's full of fleas and ticks and other ectoparasites. So probably not. I think maybe this morning, being very dewy and a lot of moisture in the grass, he's lying up there to try stop being wet and uncomfortable, would be my best guess. So we are quite far away from any permanent water holes here. Well, not that far, probably a kilometer or so to the treehouse water hole. And Lisa was wondering, how does Sindile get his water? Does he move or whatnot? Well, Sindile will be able to get quite a lot of his moisture just from the prey he has managed to kill, so from the birds and squirrels and stuff, from their blood. Other than that, we did see him this morning at some point licking dew off the grass, so he can also get moisture that way. He looks so comfy there. As it gets warmer, I wonder where he's going to move. As I said, I think he's probably, if we go up behind him, there's a nice big termite mound with quite a bit of shade, and he might utilize that as shade later on in the day. So while we are with the snoozing Sindile, we're going to cross back across to Scotty to see what he's been up to. We're not going to go anywhere just in case he decides to get moving again. We're going to stay right here, but we'll be back with you a little later.
Hello everyone, and welcome back. VM and myself are now on Arethusa and are hoping to find the leopard you've just been with's mother. And my plan at this stage is to kind of drive through the area that would be a direct line between where we saw her yesterday and to where she would need to get to in order to reunite with her cub. Now, I haven't heard any updates on where she may be or where any of her tracks, but she is going to return to him at some stage, I'm hoping, and that's why we've come into this area in the hope that we may find her or anything else of interest really, because the radio frequencies are different on Juma to Arethusa, we need to physically come here in order to know what's going on, even just for radio updates. So I'm hoping there may be some other action out here. And quite a few of you have been asking to see the Arethusa airstrip, but it's a construction site at the moment because it's being tarmacked, so it's no longer going to be a dirt strip. And what I'm going to do is just stop here and allow VM to give you a long distance view. That way we're not going to have to listen to the machinery, but you can and will be able to see what I'm talking about. I know Spusiso from Hermanskraal was desperate to go back to the beautiful open clearings that surround the airstrip, and it looks like they're making some good progress. So everywhere that is black now is the work that's been done, the tarmac, and that all used to be sand and gravel before. And the reason why they're doing that is that it's going to be easier to get different and bigger planes into this part of the Sabi Sand, so it will make all the guests who come out here lives a lot easier. So it's a great move for everyone. It also means that the staff who work in the Sabi Sands will be able to fly directly out from here, so that's something we're all looking forward to. We will no longer be required to travel an hour and a half to the closest town called Hoedspruit to leave. Now, I've just heard an update, well, not an update, I've just heard the name Breakaway Pride crackle through on the radio. So that could well mean the Salala Breakaway Pride, which is 13 lions. They're also called the Mangan Pride, depending on which lodge you work at. They've got different names. It's either the Salala Breakaway or the Mangan Pride. And they must be somewhere around here, not necessarily on Arethusa. It could be on a surrounding property that still operates on the same radio frequency. But it's been quite some time since we saw them. And let's just hope they are on Arethusa. The little squeaking noise, you can hear something in the vehicle that a mechanic is hopefully coming out to rectify soon. And apologies for that. And I'm told Pat in Washington is interested to know how old these vehicles are. I'm not entirely sure, Pat, but...
About 19.
Okay, about 19 years old, thanks, VM. But what I can tell you is that Graham Wallington, who is the brainchild of the Safari Live concept, used to have this car in a city. It used to be his city car. It had a roof and all the regular fittings and trims, and it was his private car in the city, but then he chopped off the roof, and now it's been working for WildEarth for many, many years. We're approaching the Arethusa waterhole, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on down here. Hopefully we'll get to show you some hippo, or there'll be some other animals coming down for a drink. I don't recall hearing any questions coming through from Jim in California. So good to have you with us. And thanks for sending your question through. As we approach the Arathusa waterhole, it'll be a good opportunity to answer Jim's question. And he's interested to know, what exactly is a drainage line? It's a term we often use, but forget that it may be a little bit misleading. And I know when I started in the industry, I had no idea exactly what it meant. But basically, Jim, a drainage line simply refers to any riverbed. So all it is a riverbed, and if we look down to our right, we would be able to see a drainage line, or the beginning of one, and this flows out into a riverbed away from the dam. So basically any riverbed can be called a drainage line. And as we look across now back to the dam, you'll notice that there are a few hippo here. The tricky thing with hippopotamus is that during the daytime they often stay submerged in the water, and all we can see is their heads, nostrils, eyes and ears poking out. Well, there's a little bit of movement there at least. And at this time of the year, when there's not much food and grass around for them to feed on, that's all they'll feed on is grass, they'll have to move huge distances. Looks like one or two youngsters in amongst the adults there. Well, it sounds like, oh, there's an African jacana. It sounds like I'm close enough now to copy the guys on the radio clearly, but I don't want to try and talk before we send you back to Brent, because there is a chance that when I chat on this radio, it for some reason cuts out the broadcast. But I am just going to try and see if I can communicate with the guys regarding this lion sighting. So if it does cut out, I'm sorry, you'll get sent back to Brent. If not, you're still with me. Morning, guys. I've been battling to copy any updates. Could I have one on the Ngala, please? Copy, thanks. Can you just confirm which ones, for interest's sake? Copy, thanks very much. Okay, well, it was great that I could get an update, but sadly, no good news for us. The Inkahuma Pride have been located. They're on Sibambili, which is north of Arathusa and west of Djuma, so not far from us, and hopefully they'll come across onto Djuma soon. And the Salada Breakaway Pride is further west of where we are here. So no luck with the lions, but that's not a problem because there's lots of other animals to find out here. And we are now going to head up into the area where we last had shadow yesterday and see if we can't get lucky there. Who knows, if we don't find her, maybe we will find the leopard she was last seen mating with, the Anderson male. And we've only ever had 2 visuals of him, both brief. Once was when he was having a standoff with Tingana, the other male leopard that Shadow was mating with. But sadly, even though it was such an exciting prospect, those 2 males just meters from one another, they were quite calm when we got there, and we didn't have great visuals of the Anderson male. He's a very, very big male with pale eyes that make him look very sinister. I know some of the guides have called him the Ghost, nicknamed him the Ghost because he can be a tricky customer to find. Isn't it wonderful that one of our viewers from Belgium was actually here a couple of months ago? Hello, Kathy. And we actually got to meet her. So it's so nice to be able to say hello to somebody that we actually know. I guess you guys know our faces, but we often don't know yours. But good to hear that you're watching, Kathy. And I'm sure you were wishing you were back here at Arethusa. And I'm sure it won't be long before you do plan your next safari. It must be, well, I must warn all of you that it is addictive. It's a highly addictive thing coming out here. And if you do ever come out, please let us know and we'll make a plan to meet up with you and show you a little bit of the behind the scenes, what happens in the final control room. You'll get to see the vehicles up close and personal, and like I say, we will go out of our way to make sure we get to see any of you that come out to visit. Now, I'm sure you're all beginning to wonder what exactly Sindile and Brent are up to, so why don't you head on across to him and see what's going on there.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we are still with a very lazy young male leopard, and I did ask you guys a question a while ago about what was the correct name for a leopard's whiskers, and Mavis, Marianne, well done to you guys, got that spot on. It is Vibrissae, and I think a few others you did as well, and Maggie also got it correct. So well done, Maggie, Mavis, and Marianne, all the M's who got that right, Vibrissae, and that is the correct term for a big cat's whiskers. Still on the subject of the whiskers, Crystal in California has brought up something really interesting, and she says she's read about it with tigers, that those whiskers being so sensitive, when they are on top of a prey species, they use those whiskers to sort of feel for a pulse, and so when that animal dies, immediately, well, the whiskers go forward while they are suffocating or biting the animal. And as soon as that animal dies, its pulse stops beating, those whiskers come back to their original position, and then they will know that the animal is dead. And so she's only read about that in tigers, and she's wondering if it could be the same for other big cats. Crystal, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's a very good theory. It is a possibility that definitely might be the same for the other big cats. He must have had a busy morning before we found him, rushing around, chasing things, climbing trees, chasing his own tail. He seems to have worn himself out slightly. we sit here with this young male, and we have been discussing when male leopards become independent and start challenging for territory. And Jennifer from Idaho was wondering, at what age do they become sexually mature? I think they've probably got all the equipment by about 2 or 3 years old, but they won't mate till they're much older due to competition with the other males. So I think they probably, if in a captive environment where they didn't have competition, they probably would be able to mate from around 2 or 3 years old, but in the wild it's normally closer to 5. This is not to say they're not sexually mature before then, but they only have the opportunity to mate around 5 or 6 years old. So Shadow's been out on the town, so to speak, mating with multiple males, as most female leopards do. And Lorraine and Mavis are wondering if she's doing this to protect Sindile. Probably not. It would be to protect the future generation that might be brewing in her belly. And so she would have mated with multiple males before she had Sindile, and all those males might consider that this cub is theirs. But Anderson male is definitely wasn't on the picture when she mated to create young Sindile. So it's probably for the future generation. Sorry guys, James is just calling me on the radio. Standing by. James, no further updates. Still sitting here with Shadow's cub, and Scott is on Arethusa. I haven't heard of any other tracks being called in on Voyotele yet this morning. Oh, a bit of movement. Firm tucks. Sorry guys, I'll be back with you in a second. I think it's just me, and I think Ephraim was expressing interest, but I haven't heard from him in a while. Oh, big yawn. Nope, just changing positions. I don't know if he's going to last too long in that. It doesn't look like it's very comfortable, that being a very big branch. We will reposition slightly. As you can see, I don't think that's going to be the most comfortable. Very thin branch there. So he'll probably move again quite shortly. He's just obviously got tired of lying in the other position, and he's trying out a new one. We are incredibly privileged to be able to spend this amount of time with these animals. Oh, it's tired kitty. Here we go. As I said, predicted. I didn't think he would last too long in that position. before having to move, and it didn't look very comfortable. We've been chatting quite a bit of whether Shadow's going to come back or not, and we honestly don't know the answer to that. Oh, let's just watch him here for a second. I think he's about to disembark. Oh, I thought he was going to jump, but he decided to take the slightly more elegant way down. So he's going right past the front of the vehicle now. Maybe he's decided to see if it's time to see what's around in this little territory he's been staying in for a while. So guys, he's going to go into some thick bush, and I'm going to have to do quite a bit of maneuvering.
Coming out of the zebra's direction, or from the zebra's direction, and that was the initial part of their call, but they sadly didn't follow through with it. It's a wonderful noise that rings out. And that little moment where they all clustered up earlier, I really did think, as they made that noise, I really did think they were going to go at it one last time, but it seems to have diffused now. Well, we've got some good news. These four are evidently heading back into a bit of a clearing, so I'm just going to get into a position where we can hopefully get a few more views. Great to be spending some time with zebra. I know we started on them this morning, but it's an animal that I certainly haven't been spending too much time with over the last few weeks. I haven't had many good opportunities to view them, whereas now we certainly do. I haven't forgotten about the hyena den, and we are still heading in the correct direction, but quite often out on safari the plans have to change depending on what we're seeing, and these zebras are a good example of that. I had no idea we were going to bump into them. And what a pleasant surprise this is. And the zebras are an animal that come and go from the Sabi Sands depending on the time of year. During the summer months we have quite a lot of zebra and wildebeest around, although March and April they kind of disappeared a little bit for a while. There weren't as many about. And just like the zebra and wildebeest of East Africa that migrate hundreds and thousands of kilometers from Tanzania into Kenya every year in search of food, the zebra and wildebeest here in South Africa also do seasonally migrate. It's not nearly as incredible spectacle as what happens in East Africa, but the herds will still move, just not in the numbers that they do in East Africa. Well, I think it's been a great time spent with these animals. They haven't gone into the clearing as I was hoping they would. So we're going to leave them though. And let's see if we can pop into the hyena den quickly. I've never been there, to the new one that has been found by Stefan, and looking forward to seeing what it's like. It sounds like a really nice home they've chosen. We saw those stallions kind of having a little bit of a fight with one another, but it was nothing too serious. And Lisa has sent through a comment saying she's seen horses fighting, or horse stallions fighting, and it can be incredibly aggressive and potentially fatal even, I guess. And could it be the same with zebra? Most certainly, Lisa, they can bite and kick one another, causing great harm, no different to horse stallions fighting. It's something that I haven't actually seen happen live, but I have seen a lot of different footage of zebras fighting. Oh, look who we found. It's not who we were looking for. But still a very interesting combination of mammals. Two very tall ones actually, both above 6 foot in height. Hello guys.
Morning.
What a pleasant surprise.
Nice to see you too.
You too.
Second
Twice,
time in the morning,
twice
I
on
know,
one drive.
sure.
How's it, Brian? Well, this isn't something that happens very often, and it's quite nice for you, I guess, to see the view of the cameraman and the vehicles.
No, I haven't put any flat tires.
No, I'm just making sure that Brent's vehicles are working order, which it looks like it is. Anyway.
Well, good luck at the hyena den.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to go check around Sydney's.
Good idea. Cool. So Brent's heading off to where I started the morning, and some of you may be thinking, well, what's the point in that if one person's already been there? Am I going the right way, Viet? No, there we go. So I'm going the wrong way, but thankfully VM knows where the den site is. As I was saying though, the beauty of being on safari is that even though you may drive one road, you could turn around at the end and drive straight back down and find a multitude of changes or different animals, and who knows what Brent may bump into on the way there. Because I've been away for a few weeks and haven't actually been to the hyena den, was relocated, I'm not too sure on the habits of them in the recent past, and wouldn't be able to make a calculated or a calculated guess as to whether it will be active or not. But what often happens is that the adult hyena will come back to the den to nurse their cubs and check in on them, but will not necessarily spend the whole day there because the cubs tend to pester and play with the adults too much, and they need some time alone to relax. So there's no guarantees that there will be any hyena there, but I certainly am hoping there will be. I'm interested to see how much bigger that little black cub has got. Here I can see the vehicle tracks heading off road. So I'm sure it's not long now until we get there. Okay. Apologies, I just realized my earpiece had fallen out. I wonder why these tracks come off road here. So this is not the right access then, Vim?
No, it's close to the road.
Okay.
I believe it's underneath that bed for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, now I'm plugged and have contact with the outer world. And I wonder why these vehicle tracks did head in there. Maybe there was a sighting here not too long ago. Happy that VM is here, because if he wasn't, then we wouldn't, well, I certainly wouldn't be as confident in finding that den. So Vim, you think it was that tree back there?
Yeah.
But then how come there's no vehicle tracks leading to it? Because there are vehicle tracks heading in here. Well, we will get there eventually, and I'm happy to have all of you in on the adventure of trying to find out where exactly this den is. Very good. Very good, Vim. Well, we are still very close to the Juma camp, just north thereof, so their den has moved further north from where it used to be, but not too far, probably a kilometer away. However, sadly, at the moment, doesn't look to be active. Could be one or two lying around one of the other sides here though. But not looking promising. You can see it's a very large termite mound behind us, and within it there's a few burrows. There's one little burrow there just where my finger is, and probably a few other burrows on the other side of the mound, but no sign of any hyena. Oh, sorry Vim, I've got a zebra wood tree, which is a very hard wood, difficult to break, with long spines, that's pricking him on the neck and the ear. But he's managed to reposition, and can now take you on a little bit of a tour of the hyena's new home.
It's a very good area they bought in.
It is, it's prime real estate. I couldn't agree more, VM. Beautiful fallen down tree. Good structure for the cubs to play in and also escape from any potential threats in. But this morning our timing is off. And on the way here I didn't want to be negative, but I did have a bit of a gut feel that we were probably going to be a little bit late. And it is also heating up now, so I think the hyena are all going to be relaxing in the shade. Probably not too far from here. The adults and the cubs could be down in the burrows. So we shall now continue. And I'm thinking of probably heading down to the Djuma waterhole to see if anything's going on there now that it is heating up. We may get lucky and find some animals drinking. The hyena that we would have expected to find at the stand is the spotted hyena, also known as the laughing hyena, and they are common and very widely spread throughout Africa. There's a less common and less widely spread hyena called the brown hyena, and they technically don't occur here, but I do know that Peter Pretorius, one of the other Safari Live presenters, did actually see on a live safari a brown hyena, so some of you would have been lucky enough to see that with him. But that was quite some time ago, a few years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago I'm guessing. And I'm not sure when last a brown hyena was actually sighted in the Sabi Sands. Well, like I said, I'm going to continue on towards the Djuma waterhole, but Brent is already at another one. So over to him and enjoy the
Welcome back, everyone, and we are at Sydney's waterhole, and there's some kudu. Some have finished drinking. There are still a few on their way down from the north. It looks like a young sub-adult's about to walk into frame to the right and have a drink. And yes, Scott's also got the same plan as me today. checking the water holes. There comes that sub-adult kudu. So one of the other reasons I came specifically to Sydney's waterhole as my first point of call after leaving young Sindile is we can't really see them from here, but Brian, if you go off to the right a little bit and there a little bit more, and behind the trees coming up, keep coming, there we go. If we go behind that dead tree there, you can see there's like a rise up in the distance, and that's in the Manuleti, and that's called the Dixie Koppies. And I got a report from my friends who work at Tinswalo in the Manuleti that the small pack, that Investec pack of wild dogs, has moved their den to that area. So this is the closest water to that. So always decided to come have a check. Actually, Brian and I, while we were tracking yesterday, we did the same thing just to check in case the wild dogs might head this way for a drink. And then we got some more kudu slowly walking down. One having a drink and another appearing. And we can feel the wind picking up slightly. Still think it's going to be quite a warm day, but it could be quite windy today. We are in the windy season, August. Such a serene view. Oh, Brian, look, is that a hippo out the water there? What is it? Something very strange going on there. Just, can you find my binoculars? Oh no, it's not. It's a buffalo. That's why I thought, wow, what's that funny thing in the hippo's mouth? But it's just a buffalo and its horns. And then we've got the hippos in such a serene setting. Unfortunately, this is sometimes... Oh, what have we got flying up to the right there? And we've got a bird. Grab my binoculars. Probably a bird of prey. Ah, very distinct little flight pattern there. So I wonder which of you guys can tell me what bird is that? It is flying. It's coming closer to us now, and you can send your answers through to questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. And it could catch a few of you, I think. Let's go and title it on there quickly, Brian. There we go. Well, it's quite nice to just sit still for a while, and sometimes we don't do it often enough. But it is wonderful to just sit here and take in the sightings and sometimes wait for the animals to come to us, like that buffalo who just popped out of nowhere. But Anna Marie is wondering, what is the closest river to this waterhole? Anna Marie, that would be the Sand River, which does not flow anywhere near this waterhole. It flows probably about 7 or 8 kilometers due south of where we are now. But as I leave you to ponder what bird that possibly was, we are going to cross you back to Scotty and see what he's been up to, and we'll catch up with you again a little later.
Welcome back, everyone. Vim just spotted a baby duiker. It's not the tiniest of babies, but we're just going to see if we can try and get you a glimpse of it. It's about half the size of a regular fully grown duiker, but it will be nice to show you. I don't think I have showed you any small duiker before personally. Let's see if we can work out where it disappeared to. It's somewhere on our left.
Second termite ground. Underneath that corner.
Buffalo. Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know what a ziziphus is, VM is using the Latin names to explain the trees. And there it is. Hard for you to tell, I'm guessing, from here, but it is a youngster. I don't want to try and get any closer to it in the fear that we may chase it off. Cute. With young duiker and a lot of small antelope, the adults will often leave the young in a thick area where they lie and wait for the parents to return from feeding so that they can nurse. So we don't need to be alarmed that there's no adults nearby. It's typical behavior of duiker as well as steenbok. So a lot of the smaller antelope will practice this behavior. Another one being the very cute small antelope that you get up in East Africa. Sorry, VM. Called.
I got a package drove off the bridge.
So I've just driven off a small bridge. No damage done. As I was saying, a very small antelope called a dik-dik in East Africa. They're incredibly cute. They've got an extended funny little nose, and they will also leave their young hidden when going off to feed. It can often lead to problems because people who don't know that this is common behavior for these animals will see a baby duiker, steenbok, dik-dik, and take it upon themselves to rescue the orphaned animal, and they're not doing it any favors by picking it up and trying to raise it themselves. They should just leave it exactly where it is and allow its parents to return to look after it. So if you are ever in that case, don't be fooled and don't make the mistake. You will not be doing that small antelope any favors by picking it up and rescuing it. But it is something that happens quite often in Africa. So this road is called Mvubu Road, which means Hippo Road, and it's gonna lead us straight down to the Djuma waterhole. Thanks very much to the Zoomy who's controlling that live waterhole camera at the moment for giving us an update that there's actually not much happening there as we speak. and it's Siberia Zumi who sent us through that update. Siberia, I'm hoping things will change for you and you'll get a little bit of action there shortly. And on our way there, I'll be able to let you know if we do see anything heading down and which direction you can expect to see them coming from. And that's something that's worthwhile for all of you to know, that while we are not broadcasting the live safaris from the vehicles, so in between the drives, if you do ever feel like you would like a little taste of the African wilderness, you can always log on to the live waterhole cameras. I suggested that you make sure to ask us any questions or advice on coming out to Africa on safari, and we've got another question asking for some advice, and this one's from Abby, and she would like to know something a little bit different, not necessarily about coming out on safari, but actually coming out and working in conservation in the wildlife industry in Africa, and whether there's volunteer positions that are available as one means of getting into the industry. And yes, there certainly are a lot of different volunteer programs that some lodges will run, bringing in volunteers to help out around the lodge. And amongst a lot of different research organizations and operations that are also often looking for volunteers to come and lend a hand. I sadly can't think of any to mention right now specifically for you to research, Abby, but I'm sure if you just Google volunteer work in Africa, you'll probably get an array of different options. But failing that, if you don't want to just do volunteer work and you would like to actually come out here and work as a guide or doing research, it's really not difficult to do the training. There's many different training organizations within South Africa that will help up-and-coming guides get all the necessary qualifications and training, and you can either usually do a 6-month or a 1-year course, and then it's just about shopping around to find a lodge that suits you and that's looking for work. But you'll typically find there is quite a high turnaround of guides. It's getting better, Abby, but typically a lot of people only do this for a few years in their mid-20s, maybe after they finish university. They'll come and be a guide for a couple of years and then go back to the city and lead a regular life. But as the industry is changing and it's becoming easier for guides to make a decent living and even raise a family, there are more guides that are hanging around and doing it for longer periods of time, which is great for the industry because it means you are getting the opportunity to go and drive with somebody that's a lot more experienced than just having spent a year or two in the bush. I did mention a little bit earlier that the Birmingham Coalition of Lions, or at least 4 of them, are north of us on Buffalo's Hook. The Nkuhuma Pride are west of us on Sibambili. And the Salala Breakaway Pride are out on Elephant Plains, also further west of Arathusa. And Fricky is interested to know if there's any updates on Junior, who's the young male within the Nkuhuma Pride. And nothing major, Fricky. I know that he was with the rest of the Pride this morning. And what I can tell you is that when the 3 Shimungwe lions saw him returning towards the kill that they had been chased off, basically the Nkuhuma Pride killed a buffalo. They went for a drink, and hyena then started feeding on their buffalo kill. Then the Shimungwe lions arrived, and they thought they had come across an easy meal, but they didn't realize that these hyena weren't having any of it and actually chased all 3 of them away. And they were all up in trees, the 3 Shimungwe lions, trying to evade the hyena's attack. And apparently when they saw Junior approaching from the distance, those 3 Shimungwe lions jumped out of those marula trees and hit the deck running, trying to escape his wrath. So they obviously know who he is and didn't want to take any chances. So that's the only update I've got for you, Fricky. And another question through from John, and I've gone completely blank, John, and forgotten what you wanted to know, but I'm sure I'll be reminded of that shortly. Oh, apologies, John. John would like to know if there's any way we could share the videos of that incredible interaction between the Shimungwe Pride, the hyena, and the Nkuhuma Pride. And basically, because it's not our footage, John, we're going to have to wait for the Sibambili guides to share that video, and then we will be sure to share that as well. So we're just waiting on them to get that video uploaded, and then we will be sure to share it on our Facebook page. It's an incredible interaction. Look at how cool this little tree squirrel is. It's quite nice and close, which is not always the case. What is it looking at so intently there? You'll notice the wind is beginning to pick up now, and the leaves are beginning to shake and wobble in the wind. If only you knew how many people were watching you, little squirrel. Well, I know this is a great close-up view of the squirrel, but Brent has found another animal that we don't often get to show you. So over to him and enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, and we're here with a large male warthog. You can see he's getting a bit nervous now that we've stopped next to him. You watch his body language, and it is possible he might disappear off quickly. So before he does, if we have a look carefully at his bottom tusks, not his big, very visible, round, curved tusks, he's broken his, which would be the right-hand side for you guys. But those bottom smaller tusks, those are the main defensive weapons. So those are sharpened up against those upper tusks and become these very fine, almost razor, they are razor sharp, and that is what they defend themselves against predators with. And we can see he's a male by the 2 prominent pairs of warts, one pair low down on his nose and the other pair just below his eyes. So that's how you can tell it's a male warthog. He's still not convinced about our presence. keeping a firm eye on us. So warthogs at this time of the year will be feeding quite a lot on the tubers and bulbs under the ground of the grass that will still hold nutrients and water, as well as roots of other small plants and things like that. Oh, it's being very well behaved. Normally, water pigs in this part of the world disappear very quickly. Actually, he is looking a bit nervous, so I don't want to, if he is going to stay, he's obviously found some nice food there, so we're just going to move on before he runs off. So guys, it seems like that bird got you. Finally, I've managed to catch you. There was goshawk, fish eagle, African hawk eagle, and bateleur sent in his answers. The closest one to being correct was a bateleur. You needed to look at the tail. The tail was too long for a bateleur, but it does have a similar flight pattern. And a bateleur is a type of snake eagle, and that was actually a brown snake eagle flying over us there. Well done for trying though. And I do like to throw a little few tricks in there, and so I said look at the distinct flight pattern. I think that might have tricked you guys into thinking bateleur, but it wasn't. So I'm hoping now that it's a bit warm, we're going to do one little quick dab past the Gallagher waterhole. So guys, as we come towards the end of this sunrise safari, it's been magnificent having you with us. Really enjoyed it. We had such a fantastic sighting of young Sindile. Definite highlight for me was him chasing his tail in circles and circles and circles. Thanks very much for all the questions, and thanks for joining us. And so from Brian and myself here on the Jig Jag, hopefully you'll be joining us for the sunset safari, and we're going to pass you over to Scott for the last few minutes of drive.
Welcome back everyone, and happy to hear you got to spend some time with that warthog. VM and I have been chasing this bird around for the last 5 minutes, hoping to get a good view of it. It's one that we don't often get to show you clearly, and in this beautiful morning sunlight you can, when it's in the right spot, see its feathers iridescing beautifully. A beautiful green tinge, and it's called a green woodhoopoo, formerly known as the red-billed woodhoopoo. And they've got that bright red beak that you'll see from time to time that they'll use to probe into small crevices in the bark looking for insects. There you can see it iridescing wonderfully. What a pretty bird. No different to the starlings in dull sunlight or in dull overcast weather, or when they're not in the correct sunlight, you do not realize how beautiful they are. But that view, I'm sure, gave you a good idea of just how exquisite they are. Let's see if we can get you a few more views. They often fly around in family flocks, and this one was actually with some other woodhoopoos earlier. I'm not sure where. Oh, there, another one's just taken off from the base of this fallen down cluster leaf. So you usually see 4 or 5 of them together. Ooh, this looks interesting here. It's just flown onto a cluster leaf that's been attacked by termites, and it's knocking off small pieces of sand. It's just be able to see its head poking out now around the side of the tree. I don't want to move. I'm hoping it's going to come back around this side. Come back here. There it is, a bit low down. Look at those colors. Oh. And you can see all that sand that's been carried up into the tree by the termites, so it's under attack. But thankfully this hoopoe is aiding the tree and at least snacking on a few of these termites. Oh, it's a little feeding frenzy it's found itself here. I wonder if the others aren't going to catch wind of this bounty of food. Well, here it's beginning to warm up its call, getting excited. Maybe it's calling in the rest of the flock. Sadly though, the sunrise safari has come to a close, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Great work from Brent and getting you some quality time with Sindile, and always great to see all the other animals in between. Big thanks to Tara and Nikki in the final control, and to VM on camera. You'll see James and Brent out on the sunset safari. Enjoy, and we will see you tomorrow. By we, I mean I. Toodle-doo.